sisters, we've all turned up the radio to hear Brother Jimmy Lakey, from coast to coast and shore to shore. Now raise your voice. Oh, let us all Jimmy Lakey, get out of bed. Jimmy Lakey, raise your voice. Jimmy Lakey, Lakey, hey, can't live without it with Jimmy Lakey. Jimmy Lakey.
All right, top of the morning to you. Friday, the 12th day of September, year of our Lord, 2025. I've been so busy this morning watching news that I did not change the date on our show sheet. Hope producer Chad is probably very, very confused. All right, we're going to have a lot of breaking news during the show. We got eyes on the television monitors here in the studio. And just literally as the choir was singing, officials took to the stage in Orem, Utah, for a press conference on the murder of and the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And what we do know now is that a suspect that has been publicized is in custody. We don't have all the details of it. Kash Patel has walked in the room. Law enforcement, the governor of Utah, is taking to the podium. The preliminary suspect has been identified by the New York Post, and now other networks are picking up on the descriptor. And I want to make sure I get the name correctly. The New York Post say that the suspect's name is Tyler Robinson, a 22-year-old from Utah. He's been ID'd as the suspect. And there's a couple of different conflicting stories. And again, this is going to be a very breaking news morning. Some of the things that are out there now probably going to say are different. So I may have some of this be corrected during this press conference, which we are not able to go to live. But Tyler Robinson evidently was turned in by his father. Now, there's another story out there that his father is a minister, and his father said, son, you got to turn yourself in. There's another story out there that he did meet with a minister. Maybe that was his father, maybe not. And in meeting with the minister, he went and turned himself into law enforcement officials. We do not know exactly. The press conference is just now starting, but They are talking now about a plain maroon T-shirt with a white logo. They're describing the clothing he was wearing, what time they first caught him on camera. So they're giving some of the details. But Trump said this morning on an hour-long Fox and Friends appearance, which would have been about 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. in the Mountain Time. That would have been 8 to 9 in the Eastern Time. He was on the set at Fox and Friends. He had been in New York City for the Yankees game, and he sat down and he says, I can say with almost absolute certainty that we have him. So the update is going on right now. As news breaks, we will bring it to you. But the suspect in question for the Charlie Kirk assassination is Tyler Robinson, a 22-year-old from Utah, and the hometown, I guess, is in far southwest Utah. I have photos here, and let me see if I can pull those up. I believe I can. This is. Give me just a moment. I don't want to pull up something incorrect here, but I think I can pull this up. This is the photo that is circulating on the New York Post of Tyler Robinson there on your screen as a college student at his dormitory. That is a photo that was on the New York Post, and the Gateway Pundit is carrying that photo as well. That is the one that was circulating in those closed-circuit television security cameras yesterday, and Tyler Robinson, 22. Again, the basics that we know is that he is in custody. Now, what we don't know is how he became in custody. There are suspect's family member. The Utah governor is now saying, breaking news, the suspect's family member, probably his father, as the early report, went to the police and said, hey, I think the photos are of my son. Now, is his son a minister? I'm not sure. And did they have to raid and go find Tyler Robinson, or was he hiding in plain sight? And there was a story that he actually handed himself in. So I'm looking over this way because I'm watching the television monitor to see exactly what is breaking news. Spencer Cox, the Republican governor of Utah, is actually speaking now. Kash Patel's lined up behind him, as are some other law enforcement officials, and they're making a they said the suspect had become more political recently. He was not always known for his political beliefs. So Tyler Robinson is in custody, according to all the news sources out there, and he was turned in or surrendered or identified by family members, and that is a photo there of him in a dormitory. It's going to be interesting to watch. I wish I could watch the news conference, and we delay the show, and I'll come back at the end of the news conference. I wish we could break in live, but we don't have that technology nor permission, being a live streamed show. So we probably have permission because it's on all the networks, but we don't have the technology to do so. So you're just going to have to listen to my voice on this, and I apologize for that because that's not good. But hey, it is what it is. So Tyler Robinson, give me your thoughts on that and your thoughts. Does it make you feel better that the killer's off the street? Does it make you have a lot of questions? If you could ask a question, I was thinking this in my head, if you could ask any kind of question right now, whether it's to him or God or police or his parents, I just want to know how he got here. What was his upbringing like? How do you, and again, I know sometimes our kids do dumb things, and sometimes you have to tell your kids, and you've told your kids, didn't I raise you better than this? Or you see some judgment call, you're like, I thought I taught you better than this. And, kids are going to do dumb things, hopefully not this dumb and this evil, but you just have to ask yourself, what went wrong in this kid's head? And I'm not going to blame parenting because, again, kids sometimes do things that go off the beaten path, and it's not a good thing. But I just would love to know this, and I'm sure we're going to learn it in the prosecution and the psychosis of this person. It's going to be interesting. Now, what we don't know about Tyler Robinson is, did he walk himself into the popo? There's some stories earlier that he did. Others say that he was just identified, they went and got him. The other story is he going to give a confession? Is this going to be a confessional statement like Mangione was a confessional because he wants to get his message out? If there was a minister involved, is there some more remorse? There's a lot of questions out there, but if you could go back in time and ask this, follow this kid, how do you end up becoming just a average kid, white kid in white Utah, and suddenly you commit a murder of one of the great political leaders and activists of our time? And I'm going to put this accolade on Charlie Kirk as well. Probably one of the greatest spiritual leaders for young people in our generation. I would liken, and you tell me if you would disagree, maybe I'm just being just watching the impact of some of the people I follow online, the youngsters that I follow online, knowing how my son, and I've been chatting about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and talking about the anecdotal evidence yesterday that it was my son texting me. I talked to a friend yesterday. We were watching a football game, and him and his wife did not even really, they'd heard the name Charlie Kirk. They're conservative, but they don't really play politics much. So they didn't know who Charlie Kirk was. But their son, who's in his 20s, called his mother and said, have you seen this, what they did to Charlie Kirk today? Same thing my son did. Producer Chad's son, who's a senior in high school, said, Dad, there's this video. My friend Tony, his son's in his mid to upper 20s. His son told him, and I was just talking to so many people and listening and watching some responses. A lot of the people that I've talked to and watched actually followed Charlie not just for his politics, but they actually gained some kind of new appreciation and curiosity about his faith. And some people saying, I'm going to try this Christianity thing as well, because the Charlie Kirk Christianity seems to be different than the brand of Christianity that I always thought was existing. So it's going to be, I would say, and I'll put this accolade on him, that I would say probably one of the greatest spiritual leaders of that generation that we've had. And because he's been able to evangelize, and if you watch some of his more recent videos, Charlie Kirk was just as much an evangelist for Christian teaching as he was a political guy. He was very hell-bent and steadfast on it, hell-bent in a good way, I should say, on telling people, hey, get married, have sex when you get married, have lots of babies, be loyal to your wife, just really traditional values. And he has 628 employees. I was looking this up yesterday. They raise just south of $100 million a year. A lot of that is put back into these big conferences, and they have to bring all these guests in. They don't speak for free. And these Turning Point USAs, and they have become cult-like, and not a bad way, but destinations for these college kids. 3,500 campuses. You may not know 3,500 campuses across America have a Turning Point USA group on them. And it is amazing. If you watch the numbers, you watch the explosion of Charlie Kirk and his popularity, and just the anecdotal evidence of all of us having our kids call us and talk or tell us about Charlie Kirk and mention Charlie Kirk when we didn't know if they knew who Charlie Kirk was, shows us there was impact. And it also probably does explain a very good reason of why, especially young college age or 18 plus men in their first time or second time voting, glommed onto Donald Trump in all sorts of numbers, because Charlie Kirk has had real impact on a generation. So I would say one of the most greatest political influencers, and maybe one of the greatest spiritual influencers in our lifetime, simply because he was able to go where no one else has ever gone. Again, there is breaking news here this morning. They say in the last several hours that they made great progress in the last 33 hours of investigation, and Tyler Robinson is in custody, a Utah young man. And again, there's some different explanations as to how this happened. Some people say he turned himself in. Some people say his father or family turned him in, but there is an arrest made. He is in custody, and there's an ongoing press conference. As that story breaks, I will let you know. I saw this, and I want to play a couple of videos for you. By the way, this is, again, the Tyler Robinson photo, if you're just joining us, that is circulating online in a college dormitory. There's actually another photo that I don't have right here handy, because this is all breaking news, of him standing on a college campus, and I believe he's leaning on the sign as a college kid that marks the building that that he was allegedly on the rooftop at and took the assassination shot of Charlie Kirk. I don't know if you've seen the video, and I wish I had that. I was struggling to get all the video loaded before the program. But did you see the photo of Charlie Kirk, his casket being loaded up in Utah, the Provo airport, and flying back down on Air Force Two to Phoenix? And there was Vice President J.D. Vance, one of the people ushering being the pallbearer, carrying that casket onto the lift that put it into Air Force Two. And then there was very touching video, very quick, as the cameras could see J.D. Vance coming down the stairs. And normally the vice president or president would come out first, but all this entourage comes out of the plane, and then you see this beautiful blonde with long hair, which was Charlie Kirk's now wife, but now widow. She's coming out. She's dressed in all black, and she has on dark sunglasses. And in a funny sense, I said, man, thank God I don't have any black in my wardrobe, because I would not be prepared for this moment. I mean, she is just coming down the stairs, and she's holding the hand and has her arm around somebody for strength and support. And at first, I'm just glancing, okay, who's that? Is it her mother, family? And then it clicks to me, that's Usha Vance. That's J.D. Vance's wife, the second lady of the United States. Great friend, holding hands. It was a very emotional video. I was watching it going, oh, I can't do this. So lots of questions out there, but they took the body back to Phoenix, and I guess Erica was on the plane, and they said her children were with her as well, but they were not on the camera. So if you some powerful video, very image-like, and I think one of the reasons I'm also captivated by this, and I'm just giving you a little stream of consciousness, as the forensic evidence Kash Patel has said is now being evaluated, but they're going to continue to look into this and make sure they have every I dotted and every T crossed now that they have a suspect in custody. But I really think one of the reasons I think this is impactful is, you and I've talked about this before. I've talked about this on the radio show for years. Every generation has a moment in time that we remember. My mother and father's generation remembered where they were at when John F. Kennedy Jr. was shot. John F. Kennedy was shot. They remember where they were at when JFK was killed. Dallas, Texas. My parents were in college in Texas. I mean, they would tell you the story that where they were at. A lot of us remember where we were at. I remember where I was at when we got word in elementary school that at the end of the school day that we were to be quiet in our classroom. The teachers were crying in the hallway, and it was the story that Ronald Reagan had been shot, and no one knew whether or not. It was fresh, and they told us exit the classroom, go immediately to the car. If your parents are not at the curbside pickup, you wait here and do. There's no playing on the playground. Everyone's just getting straight into the car, and you're leaving. I remember that moment. I can tell you the classroom I was in that building when the teacher came in and announced that students may have your attention, and announced that our President Reagan, has been shot. And that was, I remember where I was at. I remember, how many of you remember where you were at for the Space Shuttle Challenger blow up? A lot of folks remember that. I was in school, and we were in class that did not have the television cart rolled in to watch it, but a lot of classes were watching it live. And there were no trauma counselors. There was nobody on site for us. It was just deal with it, and you just watch people blown up into smithereens, and horrific moments. And I really think, just kind of with the evidence that I've given you, that this is going to be a JFK assassination moment for my son, and for a lot of our kids, probably producer Chad's son, his sons. This is going to be a JFK moment. I remember where I was at when I heard that Charlie Kirk had been shot. I remember where I was at when I heard. That's how impactful I think we have to recognize Charlie Kirk has been over the last many years, and some of us didn't even know. One of my friends told me yesterday, he said, I don't even know where my son got his political interest, and I didn't know who Charlie Kirk was, but evidently my son's a student of Charlie Kirk, really enjoys the guy. And it's fascinating to watch this impact that Charlie has had, and that's why this is such a big deal. This is going to be that JFK moment for a new generation. One more thing before I show you some video and update you. They're now showing mugshots of the assassination suspect. He looks very tired, sweaty, a little greasy haired, like he maybe hasn't showered in a while. But their mugshots are releasing now at this press conference held by Kash Patel. Trying to give everybody the details of it, and mugshots are now being released. And again, here's the photo we have of the guy, and it looks like the same guy in the mugshot as in this college dormitory. Tyler Robinson has been taken into custody, or is in custody, on the assassination of Charlie Kirk. President Trump was on, as I said, on Fox and Friends this morning, doing an hour-long interview on all sorts of topics. And they were talking about when he learned that Charlie Kirk had been shot. And he says he was meeting with the architects for the new ballroom that they're building at the White House, that President Trump's paying for really himself. They're going to put a new ballroom in because they're tired of doing outdoor events in tents for state dinners. And he says, this is dumb. Our feet are soaking wet. Our gowns and high heels are sinking in the mud. And we got to have a better. So they're building up. And so he's meeting with the architects yesterday, going over the plans. And they walked in and said, Mr. President. And at that point, they thought immediately, so we had watched the shot and thought he died immediately. It said, Mr. President, Charlie Kirk is dead. He's been shot. And President Trump said he stopped everything with the architects and said, well, what are you talking about? And they said, he's speaking in Utah and just took a bullet, and we think he's dead. And that was before the corroboration. And President Trump said on Fox and Friends, he just turned to the architects and says, you guys need to leave. Please go. And he had to be alone. And then he talked about a moment. And again, this goes back to the impact of a generation. He talked about his son, Barron. And he says when he became president and was running again sometime in the course of this last several years, Barron came to him and said, Dad, I want to meet somebody. And you're the president, or former president, future president. I want to meet somebody. And President Trump said on Fox and Friends, he was like, he wants to meet a king or a world leader. Maybe he wants to meet King Charles or somebody. Well, who do you want to meet, Barron? He says, I want to meet Charlie Kirk. Of all the people that he could be introduced or meet with his father, Barron Trump came and said, I want to meet Charlie. And so Charlie Kirk was at Mar-a-Lago, and he had lunch and sat down with Barron, and Barron walked away, I would say, starstruck, and just said, it's amazing. So again, as you take all this in a moment of history, I think for a generation, this is going to be a moment of history that will be as loud and impactful as what many of us experienced at times. Many of us have experienced those moments, the space shuttle, the JFK assassination, the Ronald Reagan assassination. And I think this is maybe for this generation going to be one of those moments. All right. Tribute to Charlie. Other news I want to get to. By the way, Sherry Cree is going to be on, our great realtor friend. She'll be on the program a little bit later today. Sheriff Steve Reams is coming up on the program. And after being off a couple of Fridays, this is our first Friday show in a long time. We have the amazing Doug Giles back with us at the next hour of the program. That'll be our final guest of the day. That'll be 9 o'clock Mountain Time, 11 o'clock Eastern Time. Doug Giles going to be on the show with us today, and I hope you will stick around for that. So I'm sure he has some commentary that you're not going to want to miss. This was on the Fox show the other day. This is Charlie Kirk was 17 or 18 in this video. And this was his very first ever appearance, I believe, on television. I know it's the first ever appearance on Fox, but I believe this is his first television appearance as he was just a young man starting some kind of a conservative movement in the Chicago area. And you can hear, I had a friend yesterday say, how did he get so smart? And I said, go back and watch the early videos of Charlie. He knew how to debate and how to talk and how to express his thoughts and opinions and facts with at a very young age. This is the very first appearance of Charlie Kirk on television. Watch this.
High school this coming June, we're handed a diploma. That's also an invoice for hundreds of thousands of dollars that my generation is going to have to pay off through interest, high taxes, and a stagnant economy. We here at SOS Liberty believe that if we do not change the conversation back to us, the kids that are going to have to inherit this debt, that our economy will be stagnant for years to come. And our website, we have really interesting things. We have videos, pictures trying to inspire the youth, sosliberty.com, that has a wide variety of youth from all across the country jumping onto our cause. I'm having trouble finding a summer job, as is Mike, in a lot of different regards. A lot of kids are feeling the effects of what we like to call, with the Washington economy, with a lot of debt plummeting small business, with higher regulation and high taxes. We're just trying to reinstitute the founding principles, free market, fiscal responsibility. SOS Liberty is a nonpartisan. We don't consider this a Republican versus Democrat issue, but rather a generational one.
It's pretty powerful that kid in 2012, do the math on, he was 31 when he was assassinated, that he was so eloquent and could make those arguments so clearly. So anyway, just a tribute to Charlie that he's made such an impact, and he was an impactful young man. At 17, 18, was making an appearance on Fox News because he was, I've heard more and more people, and I thought this in my life, sometimes you see people say, man, I want him to run for office one day. And more people, I'm watching old videos and circling back, and there was a lot of talk that maybe the next decade or so, Charlie Kirk might have been a presidential candidate. And it's just fascinating to watch this whole thing unfold, which, again, if you don't know the context, if you're an alien coming in from outer space, you're like, the guy's not an elected official. He's not a singer. He's not a pop star, but he's a star. He's a rock star and very impactful. And I think probably for a generation had as much impact as one of their favorite celebrities or a politician. It's really amazing to watch the impact. All right, coming up on the program, America's Sheriff. America's favorite sheriff, Steve Reams, is going to be on the program. I gave him that name. America's favorite sheriff, America's favorite law enforcement officer, Steve Reams, is going to be on the program here in just a minute. Let me show you one more video. Charlie Kirk knew what he was up against, and I think it's all important that we all know what we're up against with the American left. I remember running for Congress in the 7th Congressional District back in 2010. When I ran for, it's been that long? I guess it has been 15 years. I ran for Congress. I was not successful, by the way. But when I ran for Congress, I remember the names I got called. I was just shocked. I went in it like Jimmy Stewart, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. I'm going to go plant my flag and we're going to clean this crap hole up. And I didn't even get to Washington, and I realized just in the little 7th district, there's some very nasty people that want to hold on to political power. There's Republicans that want to destroy you because they don't like you and their candidate. It gets real personal, and I got called names, and I had literally. This was my son was in the country. Obviously, my son was adopted. I was doing work in Rwanda through which I just started Rivers Promise, and they started calling me a racist. I'm like, how is this possible that I'm you can call me a lot of things. Maybe say I'm not the sharpest bulb in the sharpest pencil in the sharpest knife in the drawer, the sharpest pencil in the pencil holder. You can say you not the brightest bulb in the box. Whatever you want to. You can say whatever you want, but calling me a racist was interesting. Being that my life work had just altered and my work in Rwanda had just really gotten started, and they called me a racist, and I just realized that there's a litany of things they have to call you, and they have to call you a racist, they have to call you a bigot, they have to call you a homophobe, they have to call you misogynistic. There was this list of things, and I started checking. I said, okay, candidacies underway have now been called this. And it was a checkbox that I knew I was going to get. I realized onto the game that it doesn't matter if there's any proof or evidence, they're just going to call you this stuff. And I sort of hit the checkbox. I said, well, I guess I'm over the target. I've been called all the bad names. Unfortunately, the American left has graduated from the racist, bigot, homophobe accusation. It's not working. It's the boy, the girls, the lesbians, whoever, the cry wolf, and the Subaru drivers that cry wolf. There's a Subaru. I'm in better spirits today. The last couple of days have been very rough. Now they've decided they can't cancel you by calling you racist, bigot, homophobe. They'll kill you. And we saw that with President Trump, 2 attempts on his life. We've seen that with Charlie Kirk. They have become a very violent group of people. They were just nasty and name-calling, but once they got through the checklist and called everybody racist, bigot, homophobe, and even then really amped it up and said he's a threat to democracy. I never got called that. That wasn't in their vocabulary or the American left's lexicon of that. If I ran now, they'd call you a threat to democracy. That's what they do. And in calling you a threat to democracy, they're amping up the fomentation, the anger, the angst, and it causes people like this Tyler Robinson allegedly to go out and kill people. And so this is how we ended up in that if they couldn't cancel you now, they'll kill you. And that's where the modern day Democrat liberal movement is in America. Charlie Kirk recognized this. And again, he came on the scene and he recorded this video. And I think it's just important to watch that he knew that politics, and I said this before when I ran for office, politics is a full contact sport. It just used to be you weren't going to get, they may call you names that they weren't going to necessarily try to kill you. And the American Democrat Party has graduated now to the place of just cold-blooded murder. And Charlie knew it. I want you to watch this. It's kind of a chilling video recognizing that he knew how violent the American left is. And I want you to see it.
Of the left, at the core of a liberal, is someone that would use the sword if they had it. They are very violent people at their core. They always have been. They can't debate. They can't have conversation. So they'll resort to these tactics. They're going to do everything they possibly can to try to murder this movement because they can't beat us. So they're going to try to take weapons. And no, we're very aware of that. I'm aware of it. We have to have full-time security. This is not a joke. This is who these people are.
Charlie Kirk knew exactly what we were facing, and we have to just be aware now. I think we have to be aware of what we're facing, and I mean that sincerely. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, but I think sometimes again, I told my own experience that was not reported. I didn't make a big deal of it, that I literally had to stay away. And what's funny is I told people yesterday I had to stay away from the iHeart studio because they had an employee that just left, not directly threatening. They were very weird, psychotic messages. And there were several of them, and supposedly he had directed towards me and his hatred towards me. And he was never fired. I think he got a stern talking to. And they said, if you want us to fire him, listen, you do what you do, you boo. I'm not coming to this in the studios or the building when this psychotic son of a bitch is in there. He was a threat to us, but you know why they wouldn't do it? Because corporate America was so greedy. I hate to say this. They were afraid if they cut him that corporate would say, well, you can't rehire him. And they would vacate the position. And that's why they couldn't get, but the guy was a threat in my estimation. And they still wanted, it's a long story, but we're up against these people are psychotic and dangerous. And I want to play that one more time because I think you just need to take inventory. And I know somebody's, there's some psycho people and you live among them, you work among them. I'm watching in certain districts, people that were school officials have been fired for celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. The radicals in the liberal side and the Democrat Party are now mainstream in that party. You just have to recognize that, and they're not willing to chastise him. I don't play this again. And I say this sincerely. You need to be take very close inventory. And there's a lot of people on the American left. You think they want discourse. They don't want discourse. They'd really rather you be dead. And we've seen that happen time and time and time again. The person I had to share a building with, and I refused to go in, and told iHeart they can kiss my ass and they fire me if they want. I'm staying away until you solve this problem. The person was a threat, and I was stayed away for weeks. I was not in that studio while we waited for a solution from them. But this is what we have to now take inventory
of the left, at the core of a liberal, is someone that would use the sword if they had it. They are very violent people at their core. They always have been. They can't debate. They can't have conversation. So they'll resort to these tactics. They're going to do everything they possibly can to try to murder this movement because they can't beat us. So they're going to try to take weapons. And no, we're very aware of that. I'm aware of it. We have to have full-time security. This is not a joke. This is who these people are.
The Utah governor in his press conference right now, he's been booked into the Utah County Jail, is what I'm looking at. And there's more detail coming out of the press conference. Tyler Robinson, the governor has confirmed, and again, this just shows the psychotic nature of where these people are at in their mindset. He wrote on one of the bullets, "Hey, fascist." Now, I guarantee you most college kids in America couldn't tell you what a fascist is. If they knew the definition, they knew the fascists are the ones shooting from perches and killing people. But this is, again, a kid who had been indoctrinated because racist, bigot, homophobe didn't work. And so then they start calling you fascist and threat to democracy. And then this kid thinks he's Superman and saving America, all because the American left and the media and MSNBC and ABC, CBS have fomented this hatred, and they have blood on their hands. I mean that sincerely. If you're watching in the mainstream media and you've ever allowed the words fascist and threat to democracy to be permeated on your networks without any kind of proof, just an accusation, I'm telling you, you have blood on your hands. And you have caused there to be a widow and little kids without a father. All right, let me bring into the conversation Sheriff Steve Reams. I wanted him on yesterday, but he was a traveling man. Today he's a sitting man in front of a computer. He's America's sheriff. I call him America's favorite sheriff. Sheriff Steve Reams of Weld County, Colorado. Sheriff, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Jimmy. How are you?
Better today. The last couple of days have been rough. I had our friend Heidi Ganal on. I was holding it together for the show, and Heidi started to tear up in her segment. I stopped. I said, Heidi, you cannot do this. If you lose it, I'm losing it. It's not going to be good. So it's been tough. Give me your thoughts, Charlie Kirk. I'm not sure the interaction you've had around him or the influence he's had, but it was really an unthinkable moment when we learned this.
Yeah, I never got a chance to meet Charlie Kirk, and I followed him, I guess loosely. I wasn't a fervent follower of his message out there, but I have younger kids at home, and his message obviously resonated with the younger crowd quite a bit, and the movement that he had with younger adults was just phenomenal. He was definitely preaching the conservative movement, but more, he was out there just preaching civility. And I love the way that he would interact with folks on such a level-headed basis, and just, he just used logic. And that's something that seems to not exist a lot of time in the political sphere anymore. And, he was willing to go into hostile territories and continue to just try to reason and logic through these very difficult discussions. And it's an art that not many people can utilize, but he was a master of it. And it's extremely sad to see, the way his life ended. But I am forever grateful for the work that law enforcement did in catching this person and bringing him to justice.
It's going to be interesting. The press conference is happening right now. He wrote the phrase "Hey, fascist" on bullets, I guess, and so there's also that's being confirmed by the governor. I want to talk about the political, I guess, tone that's out there. And I was just talking about when I ran for Congress, a decade ago. I was a racist, bigot, homophobe. You check the box, fascist, misogynistic, all that stuff. The last several years with Trump, the derangement syndrome set in, and suddenly you had words like fascist. Suddenly you had threat to democracy. Talk about what you've seen you've actually been in the fray for politics, running for office here I ran once, you've run a couple of times. How has it changed? It's gotten worse. And did they amp it up when Donald Trump became elected?
Jimmy, that's a great question. The first time I ran for office was back in 2013, 2014. That was during the Obama era. And I will tell you, the liberals were very, very hard on me as a candidate at that time, because they wanted to know basically if I would enforce the rule of law. And there was this idea that I needed to be beholden to the federal government because Obama was in control of the federal government at that time. Things kind of have changed over time between Trump and Biden and back to Trump. And it's been interesting to watch how the political landscape changes, but the rhetoric or the hateful tone from the left, it's just increased over my 11 years as sheriff, going into the 12th year, to the point now where I get phone calls or messages from certain groups, and the tone of those messages are such that, like the most recent one was asking me as a candidate for a future office that I'm running for, would I still support ICE? Would I stand against their fascist? Again, that term gets used, that their fascist movements. And I just like, of course, when you phrase a question that way, there's no correct answer, right? But obviously, my stance as sheriff has been I want to be one who enforces the law. And if I can work with the federal government, I'm going to do that in a way that is helpful to the citizens. And when you just boil down to the facts of what is a law enforcement person supposed to do, what is an elected congressman supposed to do, what are these people elected to do? If you stick to those facts, I think all that other rhetoric is just that. It's just rhetoric. It's just pointless, and it builds people into camps, but it's not for a positive reason. That's for sure.
My problem has become in recent years, they have amped it up, and it gets
Yeah.
like, okay, racist, bigot, homophobe, misogynistic, that didn't work. Okay, let's amp it up to threat to democracy and fascist. And
Mhm.
in amping it up, you get people that are a little unhinged, and they start believing and say, well, if that's Hitler reincarnated, I'm
Right.
going to save America. I'll be a great hero. And my fear is they're not going to learn their lesson, even with the death and the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and they just keep amping it up rather than dialing this back, and they're triggering something in people's heads like this assassin of Charlie Kirk. Do you see any sign that the people that have fomented this anger and this hatred, recognizing maybe we should dial this back a little bit?
I don't know. When you start to dehumanize people by the terms that you call them, and then people celebrate that, it's hard for me to put my brain in a space where I can understand their line of thought. I have to believe that Charlie Kirk's message is going to be elevated to a point that no one ever believed he could probably attain on his own. And I'm not, there's no positive of his death, but if there's anything that comes from his death, it's that his message is going to it's going to be out there with a megaphone at this point. And you have to think that maybe those folks on the left or these radical folks on the left say, maybe we were a little too far off. But to your point, I think when you normalize that kind of speech, yeah, you embolden people to take extreme measures, and I think that's what we got here. It's a tragic end to someone's life. And I don't know if the loons on the left learn from this or not, but I hope so. That's all
Yeah.
I can say.
I want to talk about the case in Weld County of
Yeah.
a prisoner you had to release that made national news. I want to get to that. Also, we will talk about that new office you're running for. You kind of teased it. That was very professional of you to do that. But I want to ask you, you've mentioned these kids that are celebrating on the Instagram, the keyboard warriors out there, and they're doing some very strange strange behaviors out there, Sheriff. I just lost his video. Hopefully you can still hear me. Talk about these people that as you interact and you now arrest people or coming to jail. Have you noticed a difference? Are people more hardened than they used to be, or especially the younger crowd? Are they less remorseful than they used to be? I'm watching these people dance around on Instagram celebrating the death of Charlie. And I'm like, where did this generation come from? Is there a different character of people that are at times being brought into custody? Has something really changed so much in our culture that these people are kind of the normal? I know he's there because he keeps flipping the phone around. It must have dropped his phone. Sheriff Steve Reams is my guest from Weld County, Colorado, America's sheriff. We'll let him have a moment. Okay, he's back in the studio. Sheriff Steve Reams is there. Sheriff, do I have you this time?
Yeah, sorry about that, Jimmy. Somebody called in on my device here, and it blew everything apart. So
That's all right. I was asking, you mentioned the people that are dancing around on Instagram celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk.
yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a new thing, and maybe they did that after JFK, and we didn't know because there was no social media. But have you noticed? Maybe it's not new. Maybe it's not new. Maybe it is new. I'm just wondering, this younger generation, as you arrest younger people and arrest people, do you sense that there's just more callousness in people's heart today? Is there a difference in people than maybe got arrested 10, 20 years ago for the most part?
Yeah, in some circumstances, that's certainly the case. There's not a lot of remorse in some of these folks for the actions that have brought them to the jail, so to speak. I don't know what drives that. There seems to be less of a moral compass amongst some of these individuals, and I'm not painting everybody with a broad brush, but I've said this before, the level of depravity that we're seeing in certain offenders is so much higher than when I started in law enforcement. It's not that there's so many more of them, it's just that the level of their violence, the level of the things they'll go to is just different. There seems to be less concern for humanity with some of these individuals, and it's disturbing. There's definitely a concern there.
I want to play this. This is a story that's become national news as Elon Musk took it to task and called attention to it. We're causing Jared Polis to give a reaction. I want to get their reaction in their final moments here.
Very violent crime.
This is
and how
your
rapidly
voice,
this person
CBS
has
News.
Accumulated contacts with law enforcement. It's concerning.
Weld County Sheriff Steve Reams is warning his residents of a man he released from jail, not by his own choosing, but because the suspect was ruled incompetent to stand trial.
With that ruling, we're forced to release that individual.
That individual is Debisa Ephraim, a 21-year-old who Reams says is seen in these videos fighting northern Coloradans. The videos, too graphic to be shown in full, show men being knocked unconscious and then continuously punched in the face while lying on the ground.
He's a very dangerous person, and his actions, from what we can tell, were unprovoked.
So why did he walk free without ever seeing a jury? Reams says it's the result of House Bill 1034, signed into law last year by Governor Jared Polis. The law, at its core, said those found incompetent to stand trial should be sent to mental health care instead of incarceration. But that is contingent on the suspect qualifying for that care, which Ephraim did not, Reams says. So Monday morning, he walked free from charges like attempted murder and the cell that he lived in for the last 5 months.
This or the case that happened in Aurora with Solomon Galligan, those both are very giant highlights to the mistake that was made. It needs to be corrected. Someone's going to get hurt, and someone's going to get hurt bad.
I'll pull the story down, Sheriff. I want you to comment. That's a CBS News report talking about it. I thought they did a pretty decent job in it. Elon Musk brought this out to attention. Jared Polis, our governor, responded and said, no, that's not right. Catch us up on the latest. You had to release this person based on the facts of that story. Right. It became national when Elon really got involved, and Jared Polis living in the world of denial.
Yeah, so Jared Polis puts out a tweet in response to Elon Musk's tweet, and the fact that anything that I've put out is on that stage is a little overwhelming. But long story short, the governor was just flat out wrong in his comments. He made these assumptions that the district attorney and the county attorney had not done any research into this individual, and had just basically laid down on their job and not done what they were supposed to. It's not uncommon for him to make unhinged statements and make assumptions that are just incorrect, and he did it here again. Long story short, there's a giant hole in the law, and it was only made worse with the House bill that I referenced, House Bill 24-1034. So yeah, this individual walked free. He is not mentally insane. He is not. He doesn't have an insanity defense. Incompetent to stand trial is so much different than insanity. But of course, people want to conflate the two. He just flat out doesn't understand the criminal justice system, or at least that's what he pretends to do. But he functioned just fine in my jail for about 5 months. Only received one minor write-up the entire time he was in the facility. And if you've done any research on his social media page, it seems as if he's a functioning member, although malfunctioning member of society that understands social media and everything else. So whether he understands the ramifications of his actions, I can't really speak to that, I guess. But for that to be his green light to get out of jail every time, that's a break in the criminal justice system that's not fair to any of his victims.
So he's to be charged with attempted murder, and yet you had to let him walk out the door.
Yeah.
Our governor is so aloof and clueless that he says, "Oh, you keep him in there." This, no, that's not legal. You can't do that.
Right.
You signed the law. This guy's roaming the streets. Do we know his whereabouts now? I mean, I would suspect that you expect him to come back again because that's been his track record.
Yeah, I know he's still in the northern Colorado area. I'm not going to give out his address or anything like that. He's definitely under some law enforcement scrutiny, but unfortunately, even if we arrest him, we're right back in the same cycle. My hope is that the Trump administration will make some administrative movements where his refugee status can be questioned. As of right now, he can't be deported as a refugee because he hasn't been convicted of any criminal offenses. This cyclical thing or this circular thing. But those laws on the refugee status, or those rules on the refugee status, are put in by the administration. So I'm assuming those can be modified if need be.
So he's here. He's a refugee, claimed refugee status to get into our country, was granted refugee status, has been beating people up, knocking people out on the streets of northern Colorado, attempted murder, very violent. You bring him in, somehow he gets deemed as incompetent to stand trial, and he's still roaming the streets, still a refugee, and your hands are tied not just by the refugee status, but by our governor's signature.
Absolutely. You summed it up in a very good nutshell. This is a cyclical problem that's going to continue to happen with this individual, I fear. I don't think he's just going to decide to walk the straight and narrow after this particular arrest, and I fear it's going to get worse.
And that's the state of Colorado, unfortunately, with Jared Polis' signature. America's Sheriff Steve Reams, I call him America's favorite sheriff because he's my favorite sheriff. Sheriff, you are term limited. You cannot run for re-election to be Weld County Sheriff. You're not going to be holding a cardboard sign on the street corner anytime soon that says we'll work for food, but you are holding up a sign that says vote for me. You're running for a new officer.
Yeah, I don't think anybody grows up saying, I want to be a Weld County commissioner. Most people don't know what a commissioner is. But after 28 years with Weld County government, I've had a chance to, definitely understand how Weld County government operates in good times and in bad times. My 28 years of experience, I don't think should just be thrown away. And so I've thrown my hat into the ring to run for Weld County Commissioner at Large. I think my time as sheriff definitely puts me in a place where I can transition into that role and help continue to guide Weld County in a way that I think keeps us in a positive light. Low taxes, just making sure that that we do the things that are correct by the voters, not get too over aggressive on building projects and spending the taxpayer dollars, but instead just trying to figure out how to make the county as efficient and effective as possible.
It's one of the sharpest counties you'll find in America as far as debt-free and fiscal responsibility. Done very good. For those who don't, I live in Weld County, so I will have the chance to cast my ballot. Is it an open seat at large? Are you contesting someone?
I am contesting the incumbent in the position. Over the last 3 years, I've seen a trend for Weld County to move in a direction where those fiscal responsibility issues aren't necessarily at the forefront. So, I'm going to be contesting a sitting commissioner. You can go research who that individual is, but it's the commissioner at large seat. So it's a countywide commissioner seat. And again, I think it's time to get the county back on the right track.
If you would like to, people would like to learn more about your Weld County Commission run, and I live in Weld County. It's very important for me who's on the County Commission Award. So how do they find more about your new endeavors?
Super easy. Just go to reamsforcommissioner.com. I've got a bunch of information there, but my contact information is there as well. I've never hidden from the public contact. If you want to get in touch with me, it's super easy to do so. All my information is there. You can send an email. My cell phone's there. Reach out. But there's no doubt where I stand on most issues, and that's not going to change in a new role.
You ain't hard to find, as Coach Deion Sanders would say. Reams for commissioner. You just befuddled all the public school students going, how do I spell commissioner? Is it 2 M's, 2 S's? But it's a spelling test. It's a spelling test.
Hey, there's a lot of them that struggle with sheriff too, so it's okay.
That's what I always have to pause and think of. Sheriff Steve Reams, I appreciate you hopping on, giving your thoughts on Charlie Kirk, update on that story. And by the way, you tweeted back to Jared Polis and said you're full of crap. And any response from him on that?
Shockingly, no. He kind of went into a hole after he realized he had overstepped. He was outstepped his words. The district attorney, Michael Rourke, had a press conference and basically said, Governor, not only are you wrong, but you're foolish. I think he went back into hiding.
All right. Well, that's probably better for all of us. Sheriff Steve Reams, reamsforcommissioner.com. If you're a Weld County resident like I am, reamsforcommissioner.com. If you're not a Weld County resident like I am in Colorado, you're dumb, because there's a lot of crazy counties out there. Weld County is probably the best you should live in my opinion. Reamsforcommissioner.com. Sheriff, appreciate you. America's favorite sheriff, and maybe you're going to be America's favorite county commissioner. I don't know.
I'll take it.
I don't know if that. I didn't know that would be an award we'd ever give out. But America's favorite. We'll have America's favorite dog catcher next as well. So
maybe so.
and America's favorite city council person. That's exciting. Reams for Commissioner. Sheriff, I'll talk to you soon. ReamsForCommissioner.com. All right, I'm running a couple of minutes late on the program, but don't panic. We'll get it all fit in. And Doug Giles coming up in the next hour of the program. But right now, I want to welcome into the program our great friend and one of our great sponsors of the program. Her name is Sherry Cree. HomesWithSherry.com is her website. And I always tell you, if you need, you're not going to find a more networked or hardworking person than Sherry Cree. And if you're thinking about buying or selling in real estate in Colorado, you really need to have that strategy session with Sherry, because there's a lot of caveats out there, time windows and things that can work in your favor or against you. So let's bring Sherry Cree onto the stage. This is our new feature on a Friday. The last couple of weeks she's been on a Tuesday because we've been off on Friday. But good morning, Sherry. How are you?
Good morning. I am having a little bit tough time focusing on my work with all the incidents this week.
It's been a tough week.
Yeah. First, I'd like to express my thoughts and prayers to Charlie Kirk's family, friends, and all those impacted. So.
Yeah, it's been a rough one. The last two shows. Today, I'm feeling a little bit better, but yesterday was it was a tough couple of days. Let me ask you the. First question is, what is happening in the real estate market? People are talking about buyer's market, seller's market. Oh, the interest rate's going to do this. So let's go straight to somebody who knows what's happening on this glorious, as we head into the fall of the year, in the real estate market.
Yes. So as you know, the interest rate is specific to the borrower. So, depending on your credit and financial assessment, but we call it base rate. That's what we track to see the trend. The base rate for 30-year fixed mortgage loan is currently in the lower sixes. So it's already come down a little bit, and everybody's anticipating Federal Reserve's announcement to cut the main rate in September 17th. And when that happens, mortgage rate could go even lower. So speculation is people say by the end of the year, it's going to be around 6. But we've been wrong in the speculation so many times. So I wouldn't really, worry about, the number at the end of the year.
It's fascinating. I'm thinking of the interest rate coming down. So I'm thinking of people that have been sitting on the sideline saying, I'm not going to buy a home right now because the interest rates are too high. If it does come down, those buyers get in the market. But there's also people that haven't sold their home thinking, I can't relocate for the same reason. The interest rate is going to be too high. So does it switch to a buyer's market, seller's market? If the rate comes down, who's the beneficiary there?
So definitely, if the rate comes down, the first-time home buyers, that their financial picture directly depend on, the interest rate to determine how much you can afford the home. The real estate housing price has gone up already, so the buyers are going to be the beneficiary in the first phase. But if the buyers become active, the seller get to sell their home. So when the interest rate goes down, just the industry volume of transactions, the buying become active, selling become active. People can sell the home and buy something else. So the whole business volume will positively be impacted.
So if the buyers all jump in at one time, now their homeowners are getting multiple offers of their home, and it becomes competition. So then the seller starts to benefit as well. So I think the key would be, if you're going to jump in and you've been waiting on the interest rate, I would jump in sooner rather than later. And you said rates have already come down in preparation for this. So if you're wanting to buy and take advantage of that buyer's swing, do it today.
Yes. And then lower 6 is not a bad interest rate, but surprisingly, it's very psychologically people are impacted. People feel it's a good rate, that they will take action. If people feel it's a high rate, the action is not taken.
Yeah. Last time you were on, you talked about something called house hacking, and it was a fascinating concept. This time you sent me a phrase I want to ask you about: a buyer's love letter. What is a buyer's love letter?
So this is what happened as a common practice when it was seller's market. So just picture you're the home buyer, found the property you want to buy, you're writing in an offer, and there are 10 other buyers pursuing that property. You can only craft your offer to what you can perform to purchase, but it was the common practice a while ago to write a personal letter to the seller, basically to sell yourself as a preferred buyer. Now, so I used to coach my buyers how to write a short and sweet love letter to the seller to be the winning buyer. Now, currently, that practice is, I wouldn't say prohibited, but it's not practiced. And on my listing agreement, when I list the home, let's say you're selling the home and then you list with me, on my listing agreement, in additional provisions, it says, I'm not going to accept any personal letter from the potential buyer, and I'm not going to present that letter to you. And the reason behind it is, as a listing agent, I have, my duty, part of the duty is to protect you from false legal accusation for discrimination. So let's say you're a public figure and then you receive 3 offers and everybody writes a personal letter, and then you just go with the highest offer. But people can perceive based on who they were that you discriminated, So as a listing agent, it is important for me to protect my clients from potential legal accusation. That's why that old love letter went away.
I was thinking it's a great idea. Now you're talking about the legal ramification. I'm like, don't read the love letters, because they're going to say, oh, you didn't pick me because you're racist or you don't like my dog or whatever. Yeah.
And then those love letters were, like people sometimes could put it like a picture on the letter and we are, dedicated Christian family, and then they have cute baby, those things are very easily contributed to be like a, who you are. So in our industry, there are fair housing law. Even when I'm marketing a property, I can't say this home is perfect for family with children. We can't say. We can put a school information or distance to the park or something, but we cannot say who should live there.
Yeah. It may be a great Christian family with cute babies, or the atheist over there offered me $50,000 more. I'm taking the 50 grand, and we'll let Jesus come knock on the door and get him saved later. So
yeah. And then an interesting point is that I personally kind of miss old days, because residential real estate transaction is always like personal element to it. There's always warm and fuzzy, of connecting seller and buyer as humans. But we have to dehumanize the negotiation process because of the legal risk. And then now, interesting, I don't know what the current status of it, but there was a movement to strip names of the buyers from the contract, because let's say you have some certain negative feeling about certain ethnicity, and then you receive an offer, and then clearly the name indicates that ethnicity, you could, discriminate. So it's interesting that I'm kind of, I totally understand the legal ramifications, and then this is a current practice that is important, but kind of miss the human connection of, element of the residential transaction.
I tell people all the time, and Sherry Cree, one of our great sponsors, homeswithsherry.com. She joins us every Friday. Now, homeswithsherry.com. Sherry, I tell people all the time, you like that personal connection. They can hear it in your voice. And that's what you like people to do. Call up to have that strategy session. Maybe you want to need a quick sale between now and Thanksgiving. Maybe thinking about February, March of next year. You have those conversations and you love doing it, and help people get on the right strategy for themselves, because everybody has a different path. homeswithsherry.com. homeswithsherry.com. Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com. Sherry Cree. Sherry's been a tough week. Thoughts with you as well. I know you've had a tough time with all this craziness we're living in, but homeswithsherry.com. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, run a little bit behind on the program this morning, but that's all right. Homeswithsherry.com. Always support our sponsors, my friend. I appreciate it doing so. And again, a strategy session doesn't cost you a penny. And maybe you're just going to talk to maybe you're interviewing realtors. You got to find out who you want to have in your corner. Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com. Reach out to her and have that strategy session, kind of figure out what's best for you and your family. And she's had people that she advised, hey, probably you should wait. And then she thinks they go with someone else, and then they call her a year later. We waited. That was a great idea. And so plan ahead for those real estate transactions. All right. It's been a couple of weeks since we've been together because I've been off on the last couple of Fridays, and then he was on a hunting trip. So it's been almost a month, but we've been together. My brother from a different mother, Doug Giles, in the studio. Doug Giles, good morning, sir.
Jimmy, how you doing, big dog?
It's been a rough week, my friend. A very, very, very tough week, but getting better. We have a suspect in custody, it looks like. 22-year-old person from Utah, evidently turned in by a family member, maybe his father, who might be a minister. There he is in a college dormitory. I'll let you just take it from there, sir. The Charlie Kirk assassination.
Yeah, horrible stuff, buddy. Thank God that a minister, and I don't know if his dad's the minister or they contacted the minister, and then the minister, talked his dad through this, that, you can't let this guy go. This is not catch and release. This is catch and fillet. And I think that it's awesome that a minister did that because, ministers, I don't know if you got any preachers listening right now, but pastors, they don't have penitent privilege where they can't disclose to law enforcement when somebody, commits a horrendous act like this murder or like child molestation. You can't cover that crap over. Jimmy, in the state of Texas, a pastor has 24 hours. If he hears of a child being molested, no matter who the kid is, or a murder being committed, 24 hours to turn them in, or they're liable, and they can see up to 5 years, in prison as well. And I think it's great. And, hoorah for that minister who did the right thing, whether it was his dad or another dude, because this is atrocious. And again, a lot of pastors, we're seeing it online. They cover this crap up. They don't disclose. And then 20 years later, boom, they're in prison. And so it's good to see clerics with cojones, Jimmy.
It really is. Give me your thoughts on it's fascinating. And again, I like Charlie Kirk. I've met him a couple of times, had him on the show once or twice. Wouldn't call him a friend, but definitely have interacted back. It's been several years now. But I was telling my audience that I was listening, catching the news just as it was breaking, and my son's texting me from college going, Dad, did you see what they did to Charlie Kirk? My son kind of stays, politics is dad's business. I didn't know my son paid attention to Charlie Kirk. Producer Chad's high school son's like, Dad, Charlie Kirk. All my friends who have teenage and college kids, all of them say, yeah, it was my kids that were telling me about Charlie. One of my friends didn't know who Charlie Kirk was, and his 25-year-old son called his mom, said, you won't believe what happened to Charlie Kirk. The impact this guy's had is amazing, but what's most also amazing is not just political. He's had a lot of spiritual impact. He's led some people to Jesus.
Yeah, especially of late. And again, I don't really follow Charlie. Charlie has my Trump pool painting. One of the funniest paintings I've ever done of Donald Trump was given to him by a mutual donor of ours. And so haven't had any kind of, following him or his message, but he kept popping up of late, and he was really emphasizing, not that he de-emphasized it early on, but all the clips that I was seeing when he would go on to whomever's podcast, he was drilling down hard on Jesus is Lord, and you got to be born again, and that Christianity and the biblical worldview trumps, conservatism, Like that was his main thing. And that's what he wanted to be known for. Like in one of his last interviews, they said, so what's your legacy? Which is weird. You're talking to a 31-year-old guy who's got the world set before him. But anyway, the question was posed to Charlie, and he said, I want to be known as being courageous in my faith. And Jimmy, that kind of sentiment coming from a young male, that's rarer than the flippin' dodo bird. Because a lot of young people, it's like, I want to be rich. I want to marry a girl like Sabrina Carpenter, but she has the heart of Mother Teresa. It's kind of a Solomon like plea to the Lord, where God says, what do you need, Solomon, when he was a wee young lad and he's about to be saddled with ruling over Jerusalem. He said, I need wisdom. And God said, boom, great request. I'm not only going to make you the smartest dude on this planet, but I'm going to also bless you with insane riches. So Charlie, again, his desire is to be courageous. And he did it, man. He freaking did it. And when everybody's like, this is so horrible, it is horrible. Okay. Horrible for Erica, horrible for his daughter, horrible for his young son. But what's more horrible is Christians living a milquetoast, boring, beige existence. That's horrible.
Yeah.
He crammed into 31 years more than most Christians, if they lived to be 131, would do it. So Jesus said, if they hated me, they're going to hate you. And that's one thing that the Christians got to understand, because people are like, why did this happen? Because he's preaching the gospel, because he's preaching the biblical worldview. And we've got the United States of liberal acrimony that is completely filled with rage and hate. And when that light exposes the darkness, as Charlie did, then you can expect pushback. Charlie was martyred, Yeah. People are calling it assassination. No, that was martyrdom. And again, that's biblical. Jesus said they hated me without cause. So don't expect, limousine treatment.
Yeah. You wrote a book, one of my favorites of yours. They're all great. Pussification, the feminization of the American male. And you talked about that Charlie Kirk generation, my son's generation, the younger crowd, and how a lot of them have just been pussified. They're all on their screens. They wear their skinny jeans. They're not. It's fascinating, though, to watch Charlie and this army of especially college-age young men that swarmed to Donald Trump because they said, that's real manhood. That's a tough dude. Did he help shift something in that generation that overall had been pussified? Was he a light on a hill for people to say, hey, you don't have to live that pussified life?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, he went into the lion's den, week after week after week, college campuses. And he'd sit down in front and he would kind of do the Isaiah thing, come, let us reason together. And he would, and he showed, and again, he was gracious about it. He wasn't a jackass. He wasn't condescending. I was watching him talk to this gay college student, and Charlie was like, can we not even talk about you being a homosexual? You're not known for your homosexuality and your sexual preferences in the bedroom. Let's talk about ideas. Let's talk about God. Let's talk about the Constitution. And you could see the kid absorbed it and took it on. And he didn't leave, saying Charlie Kirk sucks. Charlie Kirk sucks. He left with a smile on his face. And and I've seen, especially since Charlie's been killed, I've seen clip after clip after clip where you get the most obstreperous naysayer right in front of him. And again, Charlie did it appropriately. And if that's not an example of masculinity for the young people, then I don't know what is. He's showing to the young squabs out there that you can carry forth the gospel. You can carry forth these traditional values. You don't have to be ashamed, and you can do it in the most hostile of environments. And again, it cost him his life, but going back to what I said earlier, Jesus told us clearly, you'll pay a high price for speaking the truth in dark places. And but again, I think from an exemplary standpoint, he's going to be a blueprint for the boys, the young boys, going forward. To be the provider, protector, hunter, and hero under God's governance, instead of some little pussy, that's scared of his own pink shadow.
Yeah. The voice of Doug Giles, if you're listening later in the day, where thousands of folks will listen throughout the day on our podcast versions of the show. And obviously some of you watch it live or watch the repeat live on the video, but don't forget iHeart, Spotify, all the places this show will go up on right afterward. Doug, give me your, I guess, thoughts of where do we go from here? I mean, the left has so demonized people like you. They demonize people like me. I said yesterday, they can't cancel you. I guess they'll now kill you. What's our path forward? Is this kind of a wake-up call for anybody in our country, or is it just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse?
Yeah, I'm not an Eeyore black cloud doom and gloomer. You see in the scripture, my mind's captured by the word of God, and anytime persecution hit the nascent church, it grew. So what devil always overplays his hand, he's like, crucified Jesus. And he's like, oh shit, he just rose from the dead. He always overplays his hand. So it's like, we got Charlie Kirk. Well, you might've just released millions of Charlie Kirks, with watering the seed of the kingdom with the blood of a martyr. I think another thing that, I wrote about this on X is we've got to run from anger. You cannot play with that sin, man. I know a lot of people's like, you got to get porn out of your house. You can't steal food and eat it for dinner and be a good Christian. You know what else you can't do? You can't be a rageaholic. And the rage that the left has, it should instruct people on the right to run from that garbage. The Apostle Paul said in Ephesians 4, verse 26, that to be angry, so it's a command, be angry, but don't sin. And don't let the sun go down on your anger. Don't stew in your juice. He said, if you do hold on to that rage, he said, you open the door to the devil. You give the devil an opportunity. And that word opportunity in the Greek is the Greek word topos, which we get the word topography. So Satan gets an inroad. He gets an area of occupation into the rager. And that's, again, you look at, Tyler Robinson and all these other people on the left, they're stoked with rage, and we're called to love, instead of to hate. And John says in 1 John 3:15 that anyone who hates his brother is a murderer. And so you see the progressive aspect of that. And John's just echoing what Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount. If you hate somebody, then you've already killed them in your heart. And another thing that I get out of this is be bold. Don't be deterred. Don't cave in. Again, when the church got persecuted, man, they went out with boldness. They weren't scared. And that confidence, Jimmy, was a sign of destruction to the enemy. And then number 4, pray imprecatory prayers. We've been given, I did a book about it 4 years ago. Can't believe it's been that long.
Wow, 4 years. Wow.
Yeah, number 1 for 26 weeks on Amazon. We've been given Holy Ghost 44 Magnum, where we can pray against principalities and powers, not nice prayers, but God smash their teeth type stuff. And we can stave off a lot of demonic activity if we would pray biblical prayers. And I've sewn into that book 28 imprecations. And if people aren't hip to what an imprecation is, it's a curse where you're praying maledictions, not against, your neighbor or your aunt with a mustache, but you're praying it against demonic powers and the people who are spot welded to them, who are impenitent and implacable. They're not going to get converted. They want jack squat to do with God. Ergo, and they're hell bent for evil and implementing that which is unholy, unjust, and ungood. Therefore, we've been given the biblical right to pray against that garbage. So if you think about most church services, they're not doing it, Jimmy. They're not praying. The Psalms used to be the Psalter for the church. These are songs. These are prayers. And the church used to, go systematically through them. But now, we've got Jesus is our boyfriend songs, We've got cute little announcements about, what's happening on the weekend. And so hell just runs roughshod over the church and over our nation. So I highly recommend, there's 109 imprecations in 150 Psalms, and it's sewn right smack dab in the big middle of this library of books that we call the Bible. And I would recommend pastors and worship leaders lead off with these heavy hitters. Put them out in the atmosphere. Let hell know that we know what they're up to, and we're not going to take their BS. And so we're going to lob Psalm 3 in their face, and Psalm 35, ooh, and Psalm 37, so yummy, and Psalm 109, ooh, baby. I wonder when's the last time any pastor listening to this has ever preached on Psalm 109, and yet there it is in the Word of God, inspired by the Holy Spirit and quoted in the New Testament.
Wow. The name of the book, you held it up. You didn't give the name. I can't believe it's been 4 years because I remember that book came out. What is it called?
Yeah, Psalms of War, Prayers That Literally Kick Ass.
Psalms of War, Prayers That Literally Kick Ass. Get a copy of it. I've got one. And I think I gave it away, though. I got to get another one. I don't have to do that. I think I gave it to my son. I don't know where I gave it. Psalms of War, Prayers That Literally Kick Ass. All right, one more quick question for you, Doug. I'm watching these, probably these pussified generation. Fortunately, we got a blueprint in Charlie Kirk that a lot of young men, young women are going to follow and say that's what it is to be bold and courageous. But I'm watching some of these jackasses on Instagram celebrating the death, singing about the death. These people, I guess they live in their mama's basement. I don't know who they are. How did we get to this place, and what do we do with those people? Maybe a couple of those Psalms of War prayed about that. It's really bizarre, this culture of death. I'm just shocked that people would record themselves with such hatred that Charlie Kirk gets martyred, assassinated, killed, and you got kids recording themselves on the streets singing and dancing.
Yeah, I would venture to guess, which is really strange with the Tyler Robinson guy, because his dad looks like legit, upright citizen and stuff. I think everything that leads to that kind of pussification is because there's not an alpha male, masculine dad in the house that superintends that kind of stupid behavior. And by superintend, I mean discipline it out of their young squab. So they're either abnegating their responsibility as a dad to train them up in the nurture and the admonition of God, making sure that they have the fear of the Lord. That'll stem that behavior.
Yeah.
Or they're not even there, just baby daddy. And people think it's cool because Halle Berry did it in one movie, but it's not cool because it turns people into monsters. And then, from a secondary causality standpoint, man, if you let Caesar, educate your kids, don't be surprised when they turn out to be Romans.
Yeah. I've watched them. So some of these girls with pink, blue, rainbow hair, they probably should have a couple of salads instead of a burger, and yet they're raging. And you're like, what? So, you think of having a daughter. You've got a couple of daughters. Your daddy's little princess. These are ogres. And I'm like, well, didn't dad go, how do we raise that? Because, fathers usually dote on their little girls, but some of these girls are just ragers out there.
Yeah, if somebody shot Jimmy Fallon, I would not celebrate. If somebody shot Jimmy Kimmel, I ain't going to celebrate. Stephen Colbert, you get AOC, Hakeem Jeff. Man, you're gone if you, relish. Schadenfreude's not a gift of the spirit. If you relish in the demise of somebody else. There's a scripture in this unread book, Jimmy, called Obadiah. It's one of the minor prophets. God says that he'll send his judgment upon you if you rejoice in somebody else's pain.
Yeah. It's a tough time, but Psalms of War, there's a light of hope. Charlie Kirk was that. I agree with you. The latter part of this, the last few years, he's really became much more ministry focused, if you will, scripture focused, traditional value focused, and he wasn't afraid to go to the lion's den. The name of the book we tell you today, there's a lot of Doug Giles books. It's Psalms of War, Prayers That Literally Kick Ass. And so you say, I don't know how to pray. I'm not a good prayer. well, get this book and it will walk you right through it. Get you started. Doug Giles, a pleasure. Great to reconnect. It's been a while. I appreciate you hopping on this morning.
Thank you, Jimmy. Stay rowdy, big dog.
You got it. DougGiles.org is his website, all things Doug Giles. He mentioned his artwork. One of their mutual donors gave Charlie Kirk one of his original paintings. If you haven't seen the Doug Giles art, go check it. It's all linked up at DougGiles.org, or you can go to DougGiles.art, and he does have prints available and originals on some things. So DougGiles.org, DougGiles.org. All right, I want to remind you that 1 week ago today was our great golf tournament. We're sending out an email today. Some of you will get that if you golfed with us last week. And I remind you, it wasn't really about golf. Last week, I was not here because people thought they were golfing. Nope, they were saving young girls from being exploited. They were saving boys from lives of crime on the street. It wasn't about putting contest or long drive contest. It was about making a difference for kids. So I asked a week before, and I'm asking a week after, if you have not made a contribution to Rivers Promise. This is our biggest fundraising event of the year, and I count the week leading up to it, which a lot of you participated in, and this is the week afterwards. And if you have not done that, if you can do that, please do. riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org, because again, I'm not talking about a donation. I am, but I'm not. I'm talking about every dollar you give saves the life of a kid, literally feeds a kid, clothes a kid, keeps them the girls out of a life of prostitution, the boys out of a life of exploitation, drugs, and street kids. That's what you're really doing. You're not writing a check. You're saving a life. And that's not exaggeration, my friends. That truly is. We get the testimonies of the kids. So if you're getting paid today, maybe you are, maybe you're not. If you feel led, that tug in your heart, riverspromise.org, make a donation today, large or small. Little as $10 buys a school uniform for a kid, which is a big deal because some of these kids don't have any other thing to wear except a school uniform. So $10 is a great place. You can start with $5 if that's all you got. But I appreciate all of you for participating. And again, this is that 1 week after time, and we'll talk about other projects for Rivers Promise and upcoming trips to Rwanda and things like that. But thank you for all of you that were with us last Friday. And it wasn't about golf. I will remind you that in an email today, that it really had nothing to do with golf and golf balls. It had to do with helping kids. So I appreciate all of you. And riverspromise.org, you want to learn more, make a donation. All right, I'm holding in my hand the Globe of Entertainment. I don't know what this globe is. It's just a prop that I grabbed one day when we started the show and said, we're going to steal memes from around the globe. Oh, around the globe. So let's do it. Meme roulette. Here we go. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. From the Babylon Bee, Colorado authorities warn marijuana consumption could lead to attending a Rockies game. This must be why I don't go to Rockies games. Could lead to attending a Rockies game if you're smoking too much, if you're on the ganja train. Choo, choo. You'd end up in a Rockies game. Are they the worst team in history now? I don't know if they tied it or they were close to it. I don't think the season's even over. Well, I think their season was over long ago. Here we go. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. This is true. All of these folks stood up to Democrats, and all of them got shot. All of them died for their words. I posted that up on Instagram last night. All those characters, Martin Luther King Jr. was included in it. Jesus was included. They all got killed for their words. Power of life and death are in the tongue. Your tongue is a powerful thing, and all those people use their tongue to stand up for what was right. And as Doug said, it ain't always easy to do what's right. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. This is one I think we did earlier, and I love this one. It's Pocahontas there. You're a vaccine denier, Robert F. Kennedy. And then you look at old Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren. Oh, she just got a puppeteer holding her up there. It's called Big Pharma. That is a true depiction of the state of the world that we live in Washington and why they hate them. You could have one for Bernie Sanders as well. Even some Republicans out there, they're being guided. We don't like Robert F. Kennedy because why? Because they are puppets by being guided by the puppeteer Big Pharma. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Everyone claiming RFK doesn't believe in science also said this person is a woman. That's so true right there. If you this is our woman. No, that's not a woman. That is an ugly, ugly, ugly man pretending to be a woman, but that person is a man. And don't lecture me about science if you want to call that person a woman. Thank you. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from. No one knows. Not one single Democrat called for a gun ban after I got shot. That was worth repeating. I think we did that yesterday as well. Look at that intent look. Donald Trump looking you in the eye right there on the screen. Not one single Democrat called for a gun ban after I got shot. It's true. Wonder why. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from. No one knows. This is the Instagram post I talked about earlier. All because of words, my friend. All because of words. There's Abe, there's JFK, MLK, Charlie Kirk, and there's our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. All got killed because of words. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from. No one knows. My screen just froze. I hope I'm still on. Okay, very good. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that means we've milked the meme machine dry. And that means the week has come to a rapid conclusion on this 12th day of September, year of our Lord 2025. I want to thank everybody who's been a part of the show. Great time talking to Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com. Don't forget to go to her website and have that consultation, that conversation, that strategy. Get in touch with her. The name of the book by Doug Giles is, you ready? Is Psalms of War, prayers that literally kick ass. And you know what? If just this audience alone, listening on the podcast, listening on the live stream, if all of us got that book and started praying these prayers that literally kick ass, where one or two gather together and agree together, then there's powerful things that can happen. So maybe all of us order that book together, and I just pray it. Watch what happens. Psalms of War, prayers that literally kick ass. If you want to follow Steve Reams and his new adventures, we go back and watch the interview if you missed it. Also, his website is reamsforcommissioner.com, reamsforcommissioner.com, as he's running for Weld County Commissioner. And that may not mean something to you, but it means a heck of a lot to me. You know why? Because he's my sheriff now, and he lives in Weld County, and I live in Weld County, and so that's a good thing. And I'm surrounded by powerful people. Barbara Kirkmeyer on this week. Remembers that she's a state senator now. She was a Weld County commissioner. She's my she's my state senator. She was a commissioner for me as well. Now she's running for governor. Now we got Steve Reams. They all want to represent where I live. I guess I live in a good spot. They all want to represent me. Thank you, Sheriff Reams. Thank you, Barbara Kirkmeyer. All right, everybody, I appreciate you. Don't forget riverspromise.org, riverspromise.com. We wrap it up on this glorious day the Lord has made. Everybody have a great weekend. I'll be back here tomorrow. No, I'll be back here Monday. See you then. Until we meet again, God bless you. God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. Peace.